I jokingly said I cheated on him during house party, but he took it seriously and wants divorce.
Hey Reddit, I never thought a casual house party could turn my life upside down. But here I am, pouring my heart out after a joke turned into my literal nightmare. Let me share how a simple joke that I made in good faith is about to end my marriage. I'm honestly ranting on here because I have no idea about what to do. I'm so confused and I see this subreddit on social media a lot, so I think I could actually get some amazing advice from on here. I love my husband and want to save my marriage, so I'm going to give you guys a little backstory to this whole situation. My name is Chloe, I'm 24 years old. My husband's name is Timothy and he is also 24. We've been together since college, but we've only been married for a few months now. We live in the United States. I met him for the first time and I knew immediately that he was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. He was charming, handsome, smart, everything I wanted in my dream man. We dated for a while before he finally popped the question, which was a few months ago. It was absolutely amazing. We went on our honeymoon and we just came back about, like I just said, a few months ago. I've always been a bit of a jokester and prankster, and well, Timothy has always been more of a serious person. Timothy was always a bit, like I said before, overly serious. So I didn't think much of it because I understand that different people had different personalities in life. His seriousness meant he was a bold, driven individual who always got what he put his mind towards. He had a great career that he had worked hard on, and he was earning well. Our house was even a gift from his parents. I admired Timothy's dedication and ambition. He was the kind of person who set goals and achieved them, no matter the obstacles. It was one of the things that attracted me to him in the first place, the way he carried himself with such confidence and purpose. As I mentioned earlier, Timothy's job allowed me to enjoy the role of being a somewhat stay-at-home wife. While I wouldn't strictly define myself as such because I did work, it was more of a part-time job at an art gallery. This job granted me a certain level of flexibility and freedom that I cherished. This balance between work and personal life kept me happy and satisfied. Though honestly, the pay wasn't great. It was okay for covering some expenses, but Timothy's job brought in the big bucks. The night of the incident is still pretty fresh in my mind, as it happened just a day ago. It was a typical Friday night, and Timothy, who is usually swamped with work, was surprisingly free for the weekend. We decided to kick off the weekend by attending a house party hosted by our mutual friends. The atmosphere at the party was lively, like I'm talking laughter, games, and plenty of drinks. We were all having a great time, enjoying each other's company and catching up on various topics. At one point, the conversation steered toward an ex-friend of ours who had recently cheated on her husband, leading to their divorce. This ex-friend had been cut off from our circle due to her behavior, so we found the situation somewhat amusing. In a lighthearted manner, one of my friends made a joke about how forgiving her husband would have been if she had been the one to cheat. Taking the joke further, I jokingly remarked that if I had been our ex-friend, my husband would never have discovered it. My husband then jokingly remarked that he would have discovered if I cheated. I then countered with another joke that he wouldn't have, and that I know this because I did cheat on him and he didn't find out. To my surprise, everyone except my husband joined in the laughter, finding the situation funny and taking it as a lighthearted joke. As the night went on, I couldn't shake this weird feeling about my husband. His mood completely shifted, and he went from laughing and chatting to being all quiet and distant. I could tell something was up, even though I was a bit tipsy. Normally, he's pretty good at hiding his feelings, especially around other people. But that night, he was like a closed book. He barely talked to me, and when he did, it was like pulling teeth to get a response out of him. I kept asking if he was okay, but he either brushed me off or snapped back with short answers. By the time we left the party and headed home, the tension between us was so evident. I tried one last time to check on him, and he just said, "I'm fine," in a way that clearly meant he wasn't. It was obvious something was eating at him, but he wasn't ready to spill the beans just yet. After my husband's cold behavior at the party, I decided to give him some space and time to process whatever was bothering him. I knew from experience that pushing him to talk when he wasn't ready would only make things worse. So I focused on getting us home and settled in for the night. I cooked us dinner, hoping it would lighten the mood, but my husband barely touched his food. It was clear that something serious was on his mind, and eventually he broached the subject. He asked me directly if I had really cheated on him. The question caught me off guard because the joke at the party was just that, a joke. However, I could understand his skepticism given our history. Back in college, at the start of our relationship, I made a mistake and cheated on him. That was because I didn't think we were that serious yet because we had just started dating. It was a rough patch in our relationship, but it still devastated him as he liked me a lot. I owned up to it, apologized sincerely, and promised it would never happen again. And it didn't. There was also the fact that before I came into his life, my husband had been through a lot of cheating in his previous relationships. It's like each time he trusted someone, they ended up breaking that trust by cheating on him. So when I mentioned cheating as a joke, it must have hit a nerve because he's been hurt so many times before. It's not just a fear. It's like a deep-seated trauma that makes him doubt things even when they're meant as harmless fun. So when my husband questioned me about the joke, I reassured him that I hadn't cheated on him this time either. I explained that it was all in jest and everyone at the party had laughed about it, but he wasn't convinced. He told me it didn't come across as a joke to him and that he didn't take it lightly. I stood my ground, telling him straight up that I hadn't cheated since our early days together. I stressed how crucial trust was in our marriage and practically begged him to trust me. But no matter what I said, his doubts were hanging around him like a dark cloud. Then he asked to see my phone. That honestly made me feel so hurt. I felt angry and hurt, like he didn't trust me one bit. Asking to check my phone felt like he was prying into my private life, and I just couldn't bring myself to hand it over. It felt wrong, like he was crossing a line. At this point, I was on the verge of shouting and had gotten up from where I was sitting and even clutching my phone. Now that I even think about it, that must have made me seem even more suspicious. Throughout it all, he remained calm, almost too calm for such a tense situation. But like I said, he has always been an eerily calm person. Despite his calm demeanor, I stood firm and said no to his request. He insisted, and I said no again, and then he just dropped it and said it was fine. And even when I tried to talk about it later, he brushed it off like it was no big deal. I woke up the next morning, my mind still reeling from the events of the previous night. There was this mix of anger, disappointment, and confusion swirling inside me, like a storm was brewing. It was Saturday, a day that we had promised to spend some quality time together since my husband rarely got weekends off. But after the tension and drama from last night, I wasn't sure if we would be able to enjoy that. As I tried to broach the subject of our plans for the day, hoping against hope that we could somehow patch things up, my husband dropped a bombshell on me. He wanted a divorce. It hit me like a ton of bricks, like literally knocked the wind out of me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He explained that he had spent the entire night wrestling with his thoughts, and he was unable to find peace, and his lack of trust had reached a breaking point. He seemed convinced that my casual joke about cheating had some hidden truth behind it, that I must have cheated on him at some point in the past. It was like a dagger through my heart. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I just started crying because I honestly didn't know what to say. So just imagine me, tears rolling down my cheeks, utterly shocked and heartbroken by what my husband had just told me. I never expected a simple joke to lead to this. He looked at me with such sadness and guilt, and it tore me apart. He admitted that the joke had been eating away at him all night, and it had left him unable to shake off the doubt and insecurity. It was like a heavy weight on his shoulders that he couldn't bear anymore. Despite my pleas and offers to prove my faithfulness, he wanted a divorce. I was floored and still am. I begged him to reconsider, to give us another chance, but he seemed stubborn. I even suggested he could check my phone, but he refused. I suggested he put an AirTag on me, and still he refused. No matter how much I promised to change or offered solutions, he remained stubborn in his decision. In a last-ditch effort, I suggested taking the day apart to clear our minds and think things through. Maybe some time alone would help us see things more clearly. But deep down, I fear that even this wouldn't mend this rift that has formed between us. So here I am right now, pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet. I honestly don't know what to do or what I should be doing. Any advice would be appreciated because at this point I need it. We were literally so happy yesterday. If I had known this was going to happen, I would have never made that joke, or I would have made sure that we skipped the house party altogether. But my mom always used to say that if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. Like I mentioned before, any advice would honestly be appreciated. Thanks. Update. Hey everyone, it's me again. It's been a week and I'm back to update you on what's been happening. First off, I want to say thanks for all the advice and support I received after my last post. It's been a whirlwind to say the least. I did kind of make this post because I really needed a place to rant, and I thought I would get some really good advices here, which I did, but I honestly didn't think I would actually come back to update it. In fact, my account is in fact a throwaway account because I didn't intend on using it again, but I've been getting a lot of DMs on the account, and this post of mine really became popular, so I guess I'm going to have to update you guys. So there's that. And to reply to some comments that I just couldn't ignore, a lot of you kept asking me if I cheated. Like I said in my original post, no, I did not cheat. The only time I cheated was back in college and I owned up to it, so please stop asking me that. And please stop saying that I cheated or saying that you bet I cheated, and that my husband must want a divorce because he found out I cheated. A lot of you all also said that I was hiding some details to make myself seem better, and that what I posted couldn't honestly be the full story. I am not hiding any details. I wish I could say more, but there's nothing more to be said. That is literally everything that happened. What do y'all want to hear? Either way, after my husband dropped the whole ball that he wanted a divorce, we had a long, heartfelt conversation. I poured my heart out, trying to make him see that we could work through this, but he remained firm in his decision. It left me feeling lost and unsure of what to do next. I mentioned to him that therapy could be beneficial for both of us, especially considering his anxiety and our strained relationship. He agreed that therapy was something he needed, but he still wanted a divorce. It was a tough pill to swallow, knowing that he was set on ending our marriage. Many of you suggested couples counseling, and I brought that up to him. He said he would think about it, but his mind was still leaning towards divorce. Feeling desperate, I reached out to his mom, hoping she could talk some sense into him. Unfortunately, her response was less than helpful. She seemed to echo his sentiments, suggesting that if he wanted a divorce, maybe it was for the best. I was livid and ended up hanging up on her. I couldn't believe her lack of support and understanding, because what the absolute fuckery. We were so happy only a few days ago. What the fuck does she mean by if he wants a divorce, I should give it to him? I honestly hung up on her. I know she's going to complain to my husband that I was being very disrespectful, but I couldn't give two fucks about he because she's just crazy, to be honest. On the brighter side, I called my parents and they were a lot more supportive. They emphasized the importance of therapy and counseling and pushed my husband to give it a try. After much discussion, we agreed that if therapy and counseling didn't improve our situation, we would go our separate ways. I also realized that I might need therapy for myself to navigate through this difficult time. It's been a really tough journey since our conversation about divorce. I managed to schedule a therapy appointment for us in 2 weeks, so now it's all about waiting and hoping for the best. I've been making an effort to be overly nice and generous to my husband, but it feels like he's emotionally checked out of our relationship. His kindness towards me feels more like how a close friend would treat another friend, and it's clear that he's guarding himself to avoid getting hurt again. The most heartbreaking part is the lack of intimacy between us. We still sleep in the same bed, but there's no physical closeness anymore. Whenever I try to initiate anything intimate, he freezes up and gently tells me that he's just not in the mood for it. It's a huge reminder of how much our relationship has changed and how distant we've become in such a short period of time. I understand his need to protect himself emotionally, especially after everything that's happened. But it's incredibly painful to feel this disconnect between us, to see him pull away when I reach out for closeness. I'm hoping that therapy will help us navigate through these issues and find a way to reconnect. But right now, it feels like we're drifting further apart each day. The kind words and advice from many of you have been a source of comfort, even though a lot of comments were harsh. I'll keep you all updated if there are any major developments. Thanks again for reading. Update. Hello, Reddit. It's been about 3 months since everything unfolded, and I should have updated you all sooner, but it's been a struggle. I appreciate all the support and messages I've received during this time. So let's get into the update. After our therapy sessions, which included individual therapy for both of us and couples counseling, it was pretty hard to fit all this into my husband's schedule considering how busy it is, but we kind of made it work. It became evident that my husband had emotionally checked out of our relationship. He was responsive to individual therapy and was making progress according to his therapist, but when it came to couples counseling, it felt like he wasn't fully invested. Despite knowing that I would be wrong, I checked his phone constantly until I moved out. I checked his laptop. I checked everything. I even checked the security cameras, and there was nothing and not even any deleted footage. I checked thoroughly and found no evidence of him cheating. He's not the type, and he's always been against infidelity. However, the emotional distance between us persisted, and we ultimately decided to part ways as we had previously agreed upon, so I'm now just waiting to get served. The process of moving out was tough. The house we lived in was in my husband's name, and it was a gift from his parents, so I had to rely on my parents to help me pack and move out. Returning to my parents' home after thinking I had moved on is incredibly painful. I miss my husband deeply, and I regret the chain of events that led us here, especially that house party incident. I've been feeling incredibly sad lately. I miss him like crazy and find myself crying way too often. I'm trying my best to move on, but it's tough. What hurts even more is seeing him seem happier on social media. It makes me wonder if my nagging and complaining drove him away. I mean, I can be a bit of a complainer, I'll admit that. Scrolling through his posts, I can't help but think, is he happier without me bugging him? It's a gut-wrenching feeling. I question if I pushed him away with my constant need to vent and my frustrations over little things. Was I just too much for him to handle? But then I remind myself that social media isn't the whole story. It's just a highlight reel. Maybe he's putting on a happy face to hide his own pain. Maybe he's finding distractions to cope with the breakup. I have my moments of self-doubt, wondering if I'm to blame for everything falling apart. Relationships are complicated, and we all have our flaws. Maybe we both played a part in this. Despite it all, I'm trying to find peace and move forward. I hold on to memories and hope that one day the pain will ease. LOL, now I sound like a poet. For now, though, I'm taking it one day at a time, navigating through my mix of emotions and trying to find my way without him. Update. Hey Reddit, it's good to be back with an update. First off, I want to express my gratitude for all the support and love I've received since my last post. It's been overwhelming in the best way possible. Sure, there have been some harsh comments and people saying I deserved what happened, but those voices don't carry as much weight as the positive ones. The kindness and encouragement I've received, including the direct messages checking up on me, mean the world to me. It's been 4 months since my last update, and I feel like I owe you all a glimpse into what's been happening. Many of you suggested self-care activities and hobbies to help me cope with the pain, and I want to thank you sincerely for those suggestions. They've been incredibly helpful in navigating through this challenging time. One thing I'm grateful for is that nobody here is placing blame solely on my ex or me. The truth is, it wasn't solely his fault or mine. We both played a role, albeit unintentionally, in the circumstances that led to the end of our marriage. It's a realization that has brought some peace amidst the whole shitstorm. As for the legal aspects, we went through the court proceedings and thankfully it was a peaceful process. Given the short duration of our marriage, I didn't receive a substantial settlement, but I did get a reasonable amount of alimony. My ex didn't contest providing financial support, which I appreciate. It shows a level of respect and understanding despite the circumstances. What's surprising is how quickly our marriage came to an end, not even lasting a year. However, on a positive note, my ex and I are on good terms now. We're cordial, almost friends, and who knows, maybe there's potential for something positive in the future. It's a small ray of hope that I'm holding on to as I continue moving forward. Update. Hey Reddit, it's good to be back after quite some time, about a year and a few months to be exact. I logged back into this account and it's interesting to see that there are still requests for an update. While there haven't been major events in my life, I do feel like I owe you all an update. And honestly, I've missed sharing my journey with you. First off, I no longer live with my parents. I've moved into an apartment and share it with a roommate. We weren't close friends before, but she's turned out to be kind and understanding, which I'm grateful for. Living with roommates can be tricky, but I lucked out with her, especially since I've heard some horror stories about bad roommates. On the work front, I had to take on a second job to supplement my income from my primary job. Like I think I've mentioned before, the pay wasn't great. I'm hopeful that I'll land a better job soon, one that allows me to quit the second job and focus on a more stable career path. As for my relationship with my ex, we're still on very good terms. He's been supportive and helpful, and we recently had a deep conversation that was quite insightful. He mentioned that losing me was a catalyst for him to rediscover himself, and those words resonated with me deeply. Plus, they're the lyrics to that Selena Gomez song, LOL. It's a reminder of how challenges can lead to personal growth and self-discovery. Both my ex and I are currently single, and we're taking this time to focus on ourselves and our respective journeys. I want to express my gratitude to everyone here for their support and encouragement. Your words and insights have helped me navigate through difficult times, and I'm in a better place now, thanks to all of you.
I never thought I'd run to Reddit for advice, but here I am. I don't know the next step to take right now. My husband found out about my secret affair, and then he set a trap for me and my app. My husband, Vikram, funny 40, is the definition of an alpha male husband. He's a successful man who likes to be in charge. He never likes to lose control of a situation. So when he found out I was cheating on him, he found a way to make me regret it. And my husband and I, Kamal, 32, have been married for the past 10 years. We have 2 children together, a 5-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy. I know a lot of people will feel the need to judge me for cheating on my husband when I have a complete family, but I have never really felt complete in my marriage. Marriage is supposed to make one feel complete, happy, and content, but I have never really experienced any of these things with my husband. Happiness became a strange feeling to me almost every day. The only light I was fortunate to see was the birth of my 2 children who completed me in a way, but even that too wasn't enough. When my children go to school, I'm welcomed by that feeling of emptiness all over again. It's not helped that the husband I married does not even notice that. He's a perfectionist who's focused on being at the top and keeping his 6 figures constant. I needed more, so I had to search elsewhere. It was a decision that took a lot of courage and self-doubt, but I had to do it for myself. What I never expected was the consequences that followed. I am a mixed woman from Mumbai, India. My mother is from Canada while my father is from India. Growing up with both ethnicities was a little bit of trouble for me. On one hand, I had my strict father who restricted almost all my activities, and on the other hand, I had my strict mother who did not want to restrict my activities just to spite my father. Yes, I practically grew up in a broken home with barely any love and attention. I grew up doing stupid things just to see if my mother would look into my eyes and tell me how much she cared for me. None of that ever happened. My father, he practically ignored my existence every single day. When I was old enough to get married, my father insisted that he would arrange my marriage for me. I did not want that. I just wanted to go to college, a place far away from my parents, then get my freedom and fall in love with a man I actually like. But none of those desires came true. I was to do exactly what my parents wanted me to do. I could not run away. They would have found me. My father worked at an airport. Of course, he had connections. How would I board a flight and not be seen? I had been desperate to get away, but I was not stupid. I ran to my mother for help, but she told me there was nothing she could do. The first and only time my mother was not ready to fight my father was when I needed her to fight him the most. She turned her back on me and did not look back. The first meeting with Vikram and his family was one of the most depressing moments of my life. Even though I knew I was getting into an arranged marriage, I still expected my husband to show me some sort of friendliness. Instead, Vikram was guarded. He did not even try to impress me. Yeah, I was dressed up extravagantly and forced to take etiquette classes so I could make an impression. 2 more meetings later, my marriage with Vikram was finalized. I had no say in it. I could not even choose the color I wanted to wear on my own wedding day. The man I was meant to marry had not even spoken a single word to me before our marriage. Like I felt suffocated because I began to feel like I didn't truly deserve to be happy. I always thought my marriage would make up for all the happiness I lacked as a child. Vikram was good looking and wealthy, but none of that really mattered to me. I wanted to know who he was inside. I wanted to connect with my husband on an emotional level, but Vikram did not look like someone who was ready for that on our wedding day. My parents pulled me to the side and warned me not to do anything to ruin the wedding. They were afraid I'd change my mind and run away. I felt like laughing at that very moment. I thought they wanted to at least hug me and tell me how much they'll miss me. Even if it was a lie, I wanted to hear them say it. None of that happened. All I got was threats and unnecessary talks about being a dutiful wife. After the wedding, I was told that Vikram and I were going to move to Australia. Yes, I was only informed after the marriage. No one told me I'd be moving before the wedding. Maybe they thought it wasn't important since my opinion would not matter anyway. And my wedding was horrible. My wedding night had to be miserable. I was a virgin. Yes, I was a very shy virgin who hadn't even kissed a boy's cheek before. I did not know what to expect that night. So I was a nervous mess. When Vikram and I got to our hotel room, he just turned off the lights and went to sleep. No, I did not feel relieved. I felt stuck. It's not because he did not touch me. Didn't even know anything about sex back then. What hurt me was the fact that the man I married could not even start a conversation with me. I tried talking to him on our way to the hotel that night, but I could just tell that his replies were forced and uninterested. He did not even tell me good night before he laid down on the bed and fell asleep that night. As a girl who was already quite damaged, I felt like I had made the biggest decision of my life by marrying a stranger. Do you know what the worst part was? It was not even my decision at all. My parents chose him for me. When Vikram and I moved to Australia, I tried to start a new life there. Even though I was quite disappointed in the husband I got, I was determined to make our marriage work. I tried starting conversations with him, making jokes, and even disturbing him while he was busy working. So this worked for a while. And he warmed up to me a little. When I say he warmed up, I meant in his own little way. He would answer my questions, laugh at my jokes, and lean into my touches with time. We were friendly enough to start sleeping together. That was how I got my 2 wonderful children. Vikram and I would have sex 3 times a week or more if we wanted. We'd also talk about random things and joke with each other, but that was it. He was no longer a stranger physically and mentally, but emotionally he was. For many months, I felt like I was greedy for not feeling complete. I felt like he was trying his best to warm up to me, yet I was the one who wasn't satisfied. I actually felt guilty for not being happy. It's something I struggled with internally for a long time. I actually began to hate myself because I was a housewife who just stayed home and awaited her husband's return just so she could feel validated. I saw my daughter and son brought some light into my life when they were born. Their births were 2 years apart, but they play like twins. I love them with every single vein in me. They stopped my emotional problems for a while, but even that was temporary. When they were old enough to go to school, my loneliness came back. I would dwell in my sad thoughts for hours before they returned. What I struggled most with was understanding what love meant. I grew up without love, so I could never really understand what it was or recognize when I was at the receiving end of it. For a long time, I thought my husband loved me and I loved him too, but one day I realized that all we had was an understand that we were stuck together for life. So we better not make each other's life difficult. That was when I made my decision. I took the first independent step of my whole life 2 years ago when my husband came back from work, and I told him I wanted to start going to college. He was surprised at my request and did not even take me seriously until I told him the same thing 2 days later. At first, he tried to talk me out of it and talk about how the children needed me, but I told him the children had school and extra lessons. He told me that he earned enough to take us a lifetime, so I should not bother getting into college. He insisted that college was important for me, and it was not about getting a career to make money. After a lot of deliberation and a series of phone calls, yes, he called my parents and his parents to ask for permission. I was finally allowed to start college. When I started college, a part of me felt light and happy. I was already 30 then, but I did not care. I now had something to look forward to every day. I made new friends and learned to laugh a little. College felt like a place to spread my wings and fly as high as I wanted. One day after classes, a guy named Freed, 1828, offered to give me a lift. I politely declined because I already had a car that was designated to drive me home, but Fred was not ready to take no for an answer. He got out of his car and practically begged me to let him give me a ride. I found the situation funny and ridiculous, so I declined once again and left in my designated car. From that day, Fred kept offering me a ride home. At some point, after 2 weeks, I sent my car back and gave in. Feed was so happy. There had been a huge smile on his face. We chatted during the ride home and honestly felt nice to meet someone new. Fred drove me home. The weeks that followed after that, it was not a problem because Vikram was not usually home till 9 p.m. in the night. I closed from college at 5 p.m. Fred and I became friends after 1 month of getting to know each other. It felt nice to have a friend, someone to talk to, and someone who actually wanted to know you without a reason behind it. I could tell that there was a physical attraction between us, but I tried to brush it off because I was still very married to Vikram. I really did, but for a woman who had been deprived of real love all her life, my resistance was not strong enough. One day, Fred and I kissed in this car. From that day on, we exchanged kisses in the car, from kisses to tight hugs, then smooching on day sex. The day it happened, I'd been so shocked that I did not move for a long time. Yes, it happened in his car. It was at that moment I realized I really didn't love my husband, because after it happened, I did not feel any form of regret or shame. I felt liberated and full. I liked it so much I was not afraid to do it again. Fine. It's not something I'm ashamed of saying because I deserve to be happy. I deserve to live a content life. Fred and I continued our secret relationship for 1 more year. I told him I was married long before we got intimate, but he didn't really care. He was okay with the secret moments we shared. Again, a smile, more and live life more purposefully thanks to Fred, but one day it all broke into pieces. On this fateful day, my designated driver came to pick me up. It was an unusual occurrence because I had asked him to stop coming since I usually went home with Fred. The driver insisted and told me he had to drive me home that day. Fred had invited me to his house, so I did not want to disappoint him. I refused to follow my driver and went to Fred's house. My husband was on a business trip and my kids were at Vikram's sister's place, so I did not plan on going back home. Fred cooked dinner for both of us, lit candles, and played some very nice music. It felt like I was in a dream, and to be honest, I didn't really want to wake up. I felt genuinely happy after a long time. I liked the feeling of content I had in that moment. I shared with Fred. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but everything that happened to me in my life had been wrong. I wanted to be selfish for once in my life. Wanted to choose myself, and I did just that. Had a passionate night with a man that was not my husband. The next morning, I woke up in Fred's t-shirt. I was thirsty and went to grab some water to drink from the kitchen. I remember hearing a knock on the door. And when I opened the door, I was shocked to see Vikram standing there. He looked like he could kill me at that moment. I was too shocked to move or say a word. I could see the anger in his eyes that day. The way he glared at me and pushed me out of the way. Fred ran downstairs to see what was happening, and that was when he met Vikram. Vikram punched Fred till he was bleeding. I had been so scared that I started to scream. I got the shock of my life when I saw my designated driver at the door with 2 policemen. That was when everything seemed to make sense. I realized that Vikram must have noticed that I no longer used my designated driver, so started to keep an eye on me. He lied that he was going on a business trip. He just wanted to follow me and catch me red-handed. The driver had followed Fred's car the night before and told Vikram the address. It was a trap. Vikram found out I was cheating on him, so he set a trap for me and Fred. Vikram always wanted to be in control no matter what. I cheated and got out of his control, so he wanted to catch me in the act his own way. I thought that was all, but Vikram had me and Fred arrested. I know some of you might wonder who gets arrested for cheating. Well, Fred and I got arrested, but it was not for cheating. The police found drugs in Fred's garden and in his car, so we were arrested for the illegal possession of drugs. Of course, it was all framed by Vikram. Fred had a heart condition and could not even smoke. How did drugs suddenly appears, and then Vikram was right there to notice it. Our explanations fell on deaf ears and we were detained for 3 days. It was Fred's friend that got us out on bail. That was 2 months ago. Vikram sent me packing and I was served with divorce papers immediately. The only thing I'm worried about now is my children. They mean a lot to me. I don't want Vikram to get full custody in court. What should I do? Should I beg him to take me back for the sake of my children? Please help me. Update. So it's been a year and I decided to add an update since a lot of people read my story. Fred and I are still together. I live with him. I'm still in college trying to finish up and get a job. Fred has been helpful and he's been taking good care of me. Vikram tried his best to get full custody of our children. He even used his wealth, but the court concluded that the children needed me in their lives. We now co-parent cordially and try to maintain a civil relationship for our children. My parents called me just to disown me over the phone when they found out what happened, but I didn't really care. They were never really loving parents to begin with. The first few months after getting caught were horrible, but I took each day seriously and fought my way out. My life is not perfect, but at least for the first time in my whole existence, I chose myself. That's all that matters to me. I now understand what care and love means. I'd rather live a fulfilled life with nothing than an empty one with everything. I lost my wealthy husband, but I got my peace and happiness, which is priceless. I hope my journey to freedom inspires someone else. The journey ends here, guys. Bye.